In World War II, no bomber escorted by the Tuskegee Airmen was ever lost to enemy fire. Good morning, I'm Joseph Leeman, a member of the United States Air Force and also a Tuskegee Airman. I'm here to inform you about the Tuskegee Airmen today and the footprints and impact that they've left on our military heritage. In my speech today, I'm going to cover a few main points. My first being the Tuskegee background, including racial discrimination and segregation that they faced, and also acts of Congress that led to their existence. My second main point is going to be about the Tuskegee description, events that they were a part of, and the reputation that they gained, including accomplishments and achievements that they've gained throughout World War II. My third main point will also cover Tuskegee's significance on the past military heritage and also on the present. Some of you may never have heard of the Tuskegee Airmen, so I'll start with their beginning, their roots, their background, and also the circumstances that led to their existence. So, Tuskegee background. They faced a lot of racial segregation and discrimination at the very beginning. Much of the American society and population believed that black men lacked the intelligence, the courage, or even the skill or patriotism to be members of the United States Army Air Corps or even fighter pilots. It was also believed that, since there was no black fighter pilots up until this point, that they were not capable of performing such roles. Until 1941, Congress passed a bill forcing the Army Air Corps to form an all-black fighter group. So, in response, the War Department set higher standards, raising the bar, stating that any fighter pilot applicant must already have a certain flying experience level or higher education accomplished that was just higher than normal. Also, the Army Air Corps Department organized their first ever Psychological Research Unit 1 at Maxwell Army Airfield in Alabama. So many of the black applicants for this fighter group met or exceeded these standards, which originally formed the Tuskegee Airmen in June of 1941 at Tuskegee Army Airfield in Tuskegee, Alabama. So the Army Air Corps set the standards pretty high, and what happens when you set the bar so high is that you only get the cream of the crop, which is exactly what these Tuskegee Airmen were. The best that the Army Air Corps would have to offer, and let me tell you why. So here's the Tuskegee description. They trained for several months, a little bit over 9 months. The Tuskegee Airmen trained and prepared for combat, but never saw any combat action. So one of their first commanders, Major Neil Parrish, petitioned Washington, asking them for the chance to face combat and go to forward deployed locations. Well, a couple members of Congress stated and presented research from the University of Texas stating that Negroes lack the skill or capability to handle complex situations, such as combat fighting. Well, despite these allegations, the majority of Congress voted in favor of the Tuskegee Airmen, allowing them to go to combat. The Tuskegee Airmen joined two more fighter groups, forming the first all-black fighter group, the 332nd. So, as their experience level increased, their reputation grew with them. They flew P-40 Warhawks and P-51 Mustangs with painted red tails. As they were flying bomber escorts, their mission was to escort bombers over enemy locations and protect them from enemy aircraft. Their reputation gained as their succeeding record protecting their bombers and not losing any during the World War II time frame. So, bomber escorts and groups and pilots began requesting the red-tailed angels, as they dubbed them, or the red-tail flyers, not knowing that they were the Tuskegee Airmen and black fighter pilots. Over time, the Germans also dubbed them as the Schwarze Vogelmenschen, aka Black Birdsmen. Throughout their service between 1940 and 1946, the Tuskegee Airmen had many accomplishments, including shooting down over 109 of the Luftwaffe, the German Air Force aircraft. They also, in their accomplishments, flew over 15,000 sorties, which, if you're not familiar with Air Force terminology, one sortie equals one aircraft in the air. They also flew over 1,500 missions, accomplishing and receiving many distinguished honors and medals, including 3 distinguished unit citations, several Silver Stars, 150 distinguished flying crosses, also 8 Purple Hearts, 14 Bronze Stars, and 744 air medals. 9 992 pilots were trained throughout the Tuskegee Airmen history, and out of those 992, 445 of them were deployed to forward locations. Throughout their combat and training, 150 of the Tuskegee Airmen had lost their lives. Knowing what you know now about the Tuskegee Airmen, can you guess what kind of an impact they might have had on our military heritage? Well, this is my next point. On the past, they were the first black fighter pilots ever, so they disproved many racial stereotypes and broke many racial barriers. They also were the major influence of passing Order 9981 by President Harry S. Truman in 1948, which eliminated all racial segregation within the United States Air Force military branches. And present. Like I stated earlier in my introduction, I'm a Tuskegee Airman. Many of you might be wondering, how is this possible? I'm a white male in the Air Force of 2009. Well, many of us members of the Air Force are proud members of being able to serve as part of the 332nd Fighter Group, which still exists today, in Balad Air Base, Balad, Iraq, which I served between January and May of 2006. They've also been the foundation of today's military warrior ethos and diversity of tolerance. As you might have noticed, many of our military branches are made up of a very diverse racial and cultural background. So, today I've covered several main points. I've explained to you the significance of the Tuskegee Airmen and their impact on our military heritage and the footprints that they've left behind. The main points I've covered were first, the Tuskegee background, including the racial discrimination and segregation that they faced and the acts of Congress that led to their existence. My second main point was the description, the events that they were a part of, the reputation that they gained, along with the accomplishments and achievements that they acquired. My third main point was the significance that the Tuskegee Airmen have had on our military past and also our present. So, my purpose was to inform you about the Tuskegee Airmen. And I would just like to wrap this up and close with a quote from a former Tuskegee Airman, Bill Holloman, addressing the controversy over the fact that the Tuskegee Airmen had never lost a bomber during their escort of World War II, which was found to be not the case. It actually lost a bomber in 1945, along with a few others, but very minimal compared to other brother squadrons. But the quote that Bill Holloman stated regarding this controversy was, and I quote, "The Tuskegee story is about pilots who rose above adversity and discrimination and opened a door once closed to Black America, not about whether the Tuskegee Airmen's record was perfect." Thank you.